Imagine strolling into a luxury hotel lobby, the kind of place where marble floors gleam like polished ice and every chandelier looks like it could pay off a year's rent. Guests sip champagne, luggage carts glide by with the quiet efficiency of a ballet, and then, out of nowhere, chaos erupts. A man, casually dressed after a long day on set, is suddenly stopped, confronted, and ordered to leave as if he were some rowdy intruder who had slipped past security. The guest's jaws drop as the new general manager, fresh in the role and eager to flex his authority, barks out the words, "Get out now!" Little did he realize, the hostile guest he was throwing out wasn't just any man. It was Denzel Washington, the actual majority owner of the hotel. If the scene sounds like it's straight out of a Hollywood film, that's because it almost plays like one, only this time the script wasn't rehearsed, and the fallout was all too real. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Now pause for a moment and picture the irony. Here was an Oscar-winning actor, a man whose face graces posters around the globe, standing in disbelief as security personnel marched him out of his own property. It wasn't a stunt, it wasn't a hidden camera prank, and it definitely wasn't some elaborate press event. No, this was the direct result of a corporate investor's behind-the-scenes scheme to seize control of the hotel, hiring a general manager with one clear directive: keep Denzel far away from the files, contracts, and sensitive records that could reveal just how deep the rot had set in. For the guests in the lobby, it was like watching the plot twist of the century unfold live, except no one could quite process that this wasn't entertainment. It was a power struggle with real stakes, reputations, and millions of dollars on the line. The tension in that moment was enough to make you hold your breath, waiting for the inevitable counterstrike. And oh, the counterstrike came. Denzel didn't just shrug it off and retreat like some passive victim. 9 minutes, that's all it took. 9 minutes between the humiliating dismissal and his explosive return. Guests who were still whispering in disbelief suddenly saw the same man, the same trespasser, marching back through those polished glass doors, this time flanked by a wall of personal security and carrying the one thing that changes everything in corporate battles: legal proof. With calm, almost cinematic timing, he dropped a stack of documents on the front desk for everyone to see. Those papers didn't just state his name, they declared his ownership, his power, and his authority to decide who stayed and who left. And in that moment, the roles reversed. The general manager, who only minutes before had puffed his chest and commanded Denzel to leave, now stood pale, cornered, and utterly powerless as the reality sank in. He had just tried to evict his own boss. Can you imagine the embarrassment? The silence before the storm? The rush of adrenaline as the crowd watched, sensing something monumental was about to happen? Denzel didn't raise his voice, didn't throw a fit, and didn't lash out. Instead, with the kind of controlled gravitas only he could deliver, he did what countless boardroom warriors dream of but rarely execute with such flair. He fired the general manager on the spot. Not just him, every staff member complicit in his removal. Right there in front of stunned guests. He ended careers with a single sentence and ordered the locks changed by nightfall. No hesitation, no drawn-out HR process, no corporate red tape. The applause that erupted from the guests wasn't just polite clapping. It was an eruption, a standing ovation for a man reclaiming what was rightfully his in a way that looked more like a blockbuster finale than real life. The power, the presence, the drama. It was Denzel Washington reminding the world that he doesn't just play commanding roles on screen, he embodies them in life. But here's where the story really gets interesting, because this wasn't just about one dramatic firing in a hotel lobby. Behind the scenes lay whispers of something darker: financial tampering, corruption, and a corporate investor who thought he could outsmart one of Hollywood's sharpest minds. Why would someone go to such lengths to keep Denzel away from his own hotel? What exactly was hidden in those documents tucked away on site? And more importantly, what does this reveal about the way power games are played in both business and entertainment? The collision of two worlds, Hollywood charisma and cutthroat corporate maneuvering, creates a story so layered that it feels both shocking and strangely inevitable. After all, who better to deliver a climactic showdown than a man who has spent his career perfecting them? If we pull back for a moment, there's an oddly relatable lesson buried in this drama. Haven't we all faced situations where someone underestimated us, judged us by appearances, or tried to edge us out of something we had every right to claim? Maybe it wasn't a hotel, maybe it wasn't millions of dollars, but think about the times when someone tried to dismiss your worth, only for you to come back stronger, smarter, and armed with undeniable proof. Isn't there something deeply satisfying about the idea of not just returning to your rightful place, but doing so with such authority that no one dares question you again? Denzel's hotel saga becomes more than a celebrity headline. It becomes a parable of ownership, dignity, and the refusal to be sidelined in your own story. And isn't that a lesson worth remembering in our daily lives? Whether we're walking into boardrooms, classrooms, or even family gatherings. Yet, the curiosity lingers. What happens to the investor now, exposed by the very man he tried to silence? Will this lead to lawsuits, deeper investigations, maybe even a domino effect shaking up the entire industry of celebrity investments in luxury properties? Because if this incident proves anything, it's that even in glamorous spaces filled with chandeliers and champagne, battles for control can get messy, public, and unforgettable. And let's be honest, there's a part of all of us that loves watching the mighty reclaim their throne, especially when the underestimation is so laughably wrong that it borders on absurd. Who in their right mind thinks they can outmaneuver Denzel Washington and win? That's not just a miscalculation. It's hubris on a level worthy of its own cautionary tale. So the next time you walk into a hotel lobby, imagine the stories those walls could tell. Imagine the whispers behind the polished smiles, the unseen power struggles hidden beneath the surface. And then remember this story. The day Denzel Washington, thrown out like an uninvited guest, walked back in as the undeniable owner, dropped the hammer of truth, and turned a moment of humiliation into one of absolute triumph. That's not just a headline. It's an invitation to reflect on your own resilience, your own battles, and the ways you can reclaim control when life tries to shove you out the door. Because in the end, sometimes the most powerful words you can say, whether to a scheming rival or even to your own doubts, are the same ones Denzel declared in that lobby. I own this. Now I'll ask you, what do you own? What space, dream, or part of your life have you allowed someone else to push you away from, only to realize you have every right to claim it back? Share your thoughts, your stories, your moments of reclaiming power. Because if this saga shows us anything, it's that ownership isn't just about hotels or millions. It's about standing tall, proving your worth, and never letting anyone else write the ending to your story. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for you to step back into your own lobby and declare it loud and clear. I own this.